You know, it's no secret that the classic Mac OS can run on just about anything these days. I mean, you can even emulate it right in your web browser. So it's probably no surprise that somewhere along the way, somebody got it running on the Nintendo DS. It's certainly a far less ideal way of using it, but it works. Barely, and it's actually not that difficult to set up. Sponsored by Squarespace. Hello everybody, and welcome back to another video. So chances are, if you've been watching this channel for even a little while now, you might have guessed that I may or may not have a little bit of an obsession with the Nintendo DS, especially the Nintendo DS Lite, because this was the console that I remember playing just all the time back in the mid-2000s, and that's around the time when the project we're going to be taking a look at today was initially released. So yeah, this is nothing new. In fact, it hasn't even been updated since 2008, but in a nutshell, this is a DS port of Mini VMac, which is a popular open source classic Mac emulator that itself is based on VMac. And if you've got an R4 or other flash cart, and ideally a memory expansion pack like this one that shipped with the Nintendo DS web browser that we explored back in this video, you can get the classic Mac OS up and running on your DS in just a few minutes. So we're going to check out how to do that, and then we're going to have some fun with this thing and see what kind of programs we can get running on it. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do, as with any DS homebrew related thing, is to pop in the microSD card in the R4 into our computer. And you see I've got nothing on it aside from the files that the R4 needs to load the menu and everything. So next you're going to head on over to the page on gamebrew.org that has the download for Mini VMac DS, and this gives you a bunch of information about it, and you just want to scroll down to the download link here. And when you download it, you'll get this Mini VMac DS.7z file. Inside of that is a zip file that contains everything you want to copy over to your SD card. So we're going to do that here. I'll just drag all this to the root of the card. And we're not done yet because you have to have at least two other things. The first is a ROM file from a Macintosh Plus. If you try to use one from a later Mac, it'll say the file is corrupted. If you try to use one from an earlier Mac, it'll say the file is too short. So you have to have one from a Macintosh Plus on this specific version of Mini VMac. You're also going to need disk images to boot the emulator. Now, in terms of OS version, the developer recommends 6.0.8, but the Mac Plus is capable of running all the way up to 7.5.5, so you can technically run that on this emulator because that's the system we're going to be emulating. However, on this blog post, the developer says specifically to avoid it because of how bad the performance is. So, you know that means we're going to do it anyway. So we'll start with 7.5.5, and then we will switch to 6.0.8 to actually try and run some software. And speaking of software, the site that hosts Mini VMac has a whole bunch of software that you can download and use with the emulator. So I've gotten a few games from here. You can also go to a site like Immaculation, and they've got a whole list of games as well. So once you download everything that you need, you're going to want to go back to your USB drive that you have all the Mini VMac DS files copied over to, and go into the VMac folder. And you see we've got these two text files letting us know that this is where we drop all of the disk images and the ROM files. So I've got all of that in this other folder right here, so we're going to copy over vmac.rom. And then we're going to start with system 7.5.5. And I'm not going to bother copying any of these other disk images over at the moment. So once you've got everything that you need copied over here, you want to make sure the ROM file is named vmac.rom. And with the disk image, you could really name it whatever you want. I'm going to name it disk 0, and I'll show you why in a minute. So once you've got all that, you want to go back to the root of the drive and open up minivmac.ini. This is the configuration document, and we have to modify a few things in here. The first thing, we're going to scroll down to the startup disks, or just the disk section here. And it tells you here that there are a couple of ways that you can set this up. What we're going to do is uncomment the disks equals none line, which, as it says up here, will load disks in the current directory named diskx.dsk, where x is a number between 0 and 5. So because I named the system software disk disk0.dsk, that's what it will start with. It will boot from that. And then if I had disk 1 through 5 in that folder as well, it would load all of those afterwards. But you have to make sure that if you choose this option that the OS boot disk is disk0.dsk, otherwise it just won't be able to boot from anything. Or what you could do is manually type in the names of all of the disks, making sure that, again, the boot disk comes first. So this allows you to have basically 5 individual disk images mounted at the same time. So if you want to have a couple disk images of various games or software, you can do that no problem. We're going to see that later on in the video. Next thing we're going to do is scroll up to the previous section. This pertains to the external RAM module. And we're going to change, in my case, because I have the RAM module that's shipped with the DS web browser, we're going to change RAM type from SC to Opera. And then we're going to save it. And this is the really cool thing about this homebrew app, is it can take advantage of an external RAM module to increase the available memory that the emulated Macintosh can take advantage of. So if you don't have the RAM module, you'll only be able to take advantage of 2560 kilobytes of RAM, whereas if you have it, it brings it up to 4096 kilobytes. So that's definitely a substantial improvement there. Oh, and one more thing, if you do want to change the location of all these files, you don't want to have them on the root of the SD card, you can do that by changing, if we scroll down here, working dir. You can modify that here if you want to like put it into a subdirectory. We're just going to leave it on the root of the card just for the purposes of this video. But that is everything we got to do. We're going to go ahead and pop this card back into the R4 and boot it up. Alright, so as per usual, we've got my DS Lite being propped up by my original Nintendo DS because the hinge is broken, and we got the R4 inserted, so we're going to power it on. And we're going to go into the game menu, and we're just going to go into bin. And then, so 2.5 megabytes is the version you'll want to run if you don't have the memory expansion module. We're going to go to 4 megabytes because we do, and we'll run minivmacds.nds. And sure, we'll create a save file, why not? And if you've done everything correctly, you will see a keyboard and kind of control area down here, and the system should begin to start booting on the top screen. And there it is. Now we can use the stylus to move the view area around a little bit. Even though System 7.5.5 was not officially called macOS, it does identify itself as such when it is booting up. And this image has been modified specifically for use with Mini VMAX. So you see we get this cool looking VMAX wallpaper here. We get, it's still loading up here, but we've got a bunch of documentation and stuff that pertains to Mini VMAX. In terms of load time, it's really not bad at all. Though, I mean, I did run this without the memory expansion module. It still runs, even on System 755, but it is definitely slow. And if I remember correctly, this image just loads up with a whole bunch of windows still opened up. So we're just going to close out of all of those. And yeah, so we'll get into how, I guess we can just start with how you actually navigate around in this. You've seen that I've been using the stylus to move the cursor around. That is one way of doing it. And you've probably noticed that the up button on the D-pad is what is mapped to the mouse button. So if I were to hold down on that here, scroll down to About This Macintosh, let go of it, it'll open up that window. Now these controls are customizable in that INI file that we opened up earlier. So if you want to, modify those to your liking, you are able to do that. I just left everything as default because it's fine for me. I got used to this pretty quickly. You can see in About This Macintosh, our total memory is 4096K. Now, according to the developer's blog, the entire emulator runs at a reduced speed. And I assume that's done just to not put so much stress on the Nintendo DS hardware. Now, in terms of using the keyboard and everything, if I were to go into the Apple menu here, let's just open up keycaps, because this is a pretty good program to demo the keyboard with. You'll notice when I try to type here on the keyboard, nothing happens. That's because this entire bottom touchscreen is being utilized right now to move the mouse around. You can change that by pressing the start button. That will enable basically all these controls. So now if I start moving the stylus around, the mouse pointer stays where it is, but I can tap the keyboard to, type out various characters. And you can also, let's just, you see there's a little bit of a delay there. We're gonna hold down the backspace key to get rid of all of that. You can also mess with these other controls down here. So if you want to have the screen scaled to, be able to see everything, you can just touch this box here with the stylus. If I can do that. There we go. So here's the entire desktop. And the best way to have the mouse move around in this mode is to change it from trackpad to scaled. You still control it with the trackpad, but instead of moving around as you move the stylus around, we'll just press start here to re-enable the touchscreen. You can still move the stylus around, but it will, basically the entire bottom screen here is scaled to match the top screen. So like if I tap the top left corner, it's going to tap the top left corner up there so I can get access to the Apple menu. You can also, if you just want to use the D-pad to move the mouse pointer around, you can change it to that one, and you see now the D-pad controls the mouse cursor, and I believe X is the mouse button. So if we hold that down, then yes, we can, change the font if we want to. There we go. And yeah, I mean, I certainly prefer, let's just swap back here. I certainly prefer having the mouse controls on trackpad. You see, I really don't like changing these controls in the first place because the buttons are a little bit... It's almost like you have to... I think it's... Is the hitbox like slightly off? I think it is. Regardless, this is my much preferred way of using it. Oh, I want to turn that back on just to clear out the keycaps there. Yeah, because it's far more... It just works a lot better with this really small screen. So we're just going to close out of keycaps, and yeah, you could go through all these if you want to. But I am going to switch over to System 6.0.8. I've got a couple games we're going to take a look at, and yeah, we'll just have some fun and see what this thing can do, see how well it handles these games. All right, we're all set. We're going to pop the R4 back in the Nintendo DS, and let's power her up. So again, we're just going to go into the games menu and go into bin, 4 megabytes, mini vmac, ds.nds, and any moment now we should get the startup screen. You do have to wait a little while for it to, start up. So, if you were like, if you thought that it wasn't working, just give it some time. But here we are, and now I added 3 other disk images to that folder, and I just named them disk 1, 2, and 3. So if we scroll over, you see we actually have the file browser, or the Finder, opening up some of them here. So we've got the Macintosh HD, this is the operating system disk, we've got MacPaint, we've got MacPong, and we have Sokoban. So we're going to just see how well they run. But first off, let's go into the Apple menu. Go to About the Finder. The system does feel much faster. I don't know if it's a placebo, but I mean, just because the developer told us it runs faster, but it definitely seems to run faster than System 7.5.5. We do have the same amount of available memory. Let's save MacPaint for later. Let's start with MacPong. I am moving the mouse with the arrow keys, or I guess, is that the mouse, or is that just the... Yeah, that's... Oh, well, look at that. I didn't even realize that. So when you have the start button pressed, the D-pad just automatically becomes how you can control the mouse, even without changing any of your options here. So that's very nice. So I can, completely miss that there. But this is really funny, just moving the... just controlling it with the stylus. I mean, it actually sort of works like a DS game would, right? Again, like I mentioned, the system is running at like a lower speed. It just makes this a lot easier because the ball moves at a much slower pace. Yeah, this actually makes Pong kind of boring. I'm sure some people will say Pong is already boring. I mean, I think it's a classic and it's pretty cool. I guess what you could do is just only have part of your view in frame. That kind of, I guess, makes it a little bit more difficult, but we'll quit that. So that's MacPong. And next up, we've got Sokoban. Now, we've talked about like Microsoft Cheese Terminator on this channel a couple times. That is a Sokoban clone. Yeah, so it looks like we can use the mouse. So this is us here, and we're moving balls around instead of boxes. Yeah, so we can move like that, just one space at a time using the mouse. We can also do that. Okay, so we can just select an area. That'll speed things up. I would imagine we can use the arrow keys too, though, so let's just switch to that. Of course, we've got this lovely arrow key layout here. I imagine it's going to take a little while because, oh my gosh, no, I want to do this key. No, not that. Down. There we go. I'm going to go over here. We're going to go up. I believe we've got to push that one, push this one up. Oh, yeah, I see. We go over here. We'll go down, over, down a little bit. We'll get behind this one, and then we can push this one all the way to the end. Yeah, let me switch back to mouse mode here. Can we just... Okay, so I guess you can't, like, if you're behind one of these things, you can't just click to push it. So you have to do it individually. Yeah, like one space at a time. Okay, so we've got that one in. We're probably going to have to move it around in a moment. So, can we just do this? That is wonderful. So yeah, that definitely speeds things up. I believe now we just got to go down with this one. And we'll go just right over here. That is really nice. Okay. And... swap back to keyboard mode here, push this guy over a little bit. I mean, it's kind of fun. I mean, this technically opens up your Nintendo DS to a whole new game library. Good job. Do you want to admire your work, perhaps undoing to review the solution, or go on to the next level? Why don't we admire my work? I'm curious what this does. We did that in 353 moves, 99 pushes, and saved 6, so we got all of them. Yeah. So yeah, there's a Sokoban clone, or just Sokoban for the classic Mac OS. And yes, I did get MacPaint because, of course, you know, I just felt like it would be a crime not to talk about MacPaint on a video about the classic Mac OS. So we'll open that up. Now, I think the best way of doing this is swapping to the scaled view, but still keeping the touchscreen controls. In fact, we'll probably, I think changing this to scaled is probably going to be the best move. That way we can, yeah, tap around wherever we want. So let's get, let's see. I guess we got a paintbrush selected. Of course, everything's just in grayscale. So why don't we start with black? We'll change the line depth there, or the size of it. And we'll just start drawing MJD, which... I'm actually doing much better than I thought. Look at that. MJ. Of course, the M is kind of screwed up, and as a matter of fact, so is the D. But, you know, we'll increase that there. Maybe get some... Let's get some of these cool effects going on. Like... Oh, yeah, dude. Can you imagine if they introduced the Mac in 1984 with this drawing? Oh, my gosh. Can you imagine how people would just be blown away? I mean, they'd be like, you can do that beautiful work of art on this thing. I have to buy it like right now. Let's make some shapes, because we can do that too. Let's make some wonderful, cool looking shapes here. Okay, there we go. This is a lovely work of art, so we're definitely... Oh yeah, so you see, if you didn't notice the real difference between the scaled and the trackpad mouse controls here, when you're in scaled, like every time that you make contact with the touchscreen, it's going to move the cursor to that position on the screen. So you can't just like stay in one area. It's going to constantly move around. So you definitely want to be on trackpad if you're zoomed in. That way, you see when I take the stylus off the screen and tap, it doesn't just move the cursor randomly around the screen. So, we are absolutely going to save this masterpiece. And speaking of masterpieces, those are just the kind of websites you can easily create with today's video sponsor, Squarespace. Because whether you're wanting to create a portfolio, a personal blog, or an online store, they've got a wide selection of beautifully designed templates to get you started off with a professional looking site. Or you can even make your own with Squarespace's new Blueprint tool. Either way, you'll be able to take advantage of their fluid engine, which lets you easily drag and drop images, text boxes, and other elements wherever you want to more easily customize your site. And with e-commerce functionality built right in, setting up a storefront for your business is incredibly simple, allowing you to showcase your products in their best light and use email campaigns to get your audience excited about new offerings and promotions. Plus, Squarespace handles domain registration too. So if you're looking to reserve your cool new business name, or if you need full-on website hosting, head on over to squarespace.com/michaelmjd to get 10% off your first purchase. And huge thanks to Squarespace for making this video possible. Well, I think that about wraps it up for this video, guys. This was a lot of fun, and some of you guys have noticed I've been doing more Mac-related content on the channel recently, and that wasn't really intentional. It just kind of happened, but I'm definitely a fan of it. I mean, I've been enjoying it. I know we usually talk about Windows stuff on this channel, and trust me, that's not going away, but I've had a few more like Mac-related video ideas recently, so we're definitely going to explore those in future videos. So yeah, be sure to let me know what you think of this one if you want to see more fun tech experiments like this. And if you enjoyed this one, definitely be sure to give it a thumbs up, get subscribed, all that good stuff. If you really enjoyed it and want to get early access to my future episodes, I do have a Patreon you could check out down below, or you could become a channel member by hitting that join button. But either way, I just want to thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.